Hello everyone, welcome to KPMG's Doing the Deal podcast series, where we engage key industry leaders and decision makers on the investment landscape to share insights on doing the deal across the West Africa sub-region. My name is Asare. I'm a partner with a deal advisory unit based in Ghana, and I'll be your host for this edition. Today, I'm privileged to have Nnennia Ejebe, who is a partner and investment committee member at Adenia Partners. Nnennia, well, welcome to KPMG.
Very nice to be here. Thank you.
So maybe we'll begin by you introducing yourself briefly and then sharing some insights into your deal-making activities at Adenia Partners.
All right, thank you. My name is Nnennia. I'm a partner at Adenia Partners, a firm that I've been at for the last 12 years, and I'm in charge of Anglophone West Africa for the firm. Adenia Partners is a Pan-African private equity house with presence in East Africa, in North Africa, Southern Africa, and we recently just opened up a presence in Egypt. We serve institutional investors like DFIs, as well as high net worth individuals and other types of asset management companies that want to have access to investments in Africa, and they find that the private markets, privately held businesses, give them a better coverage than investing in our listed equities in Africa.
Great. So you really truly Pan-African, not focused on just West Africa sub-region.
Yes, our firm is. I mean, for me, I've been primarily focused working on deals in the Anglophone West Africa region, but I also have worked on transactions in retail in East Africa. Recently, we closed a transaction in the industrial space across West and Central Africa. So yeah, I have deal experience both in our region and across the
other sub-regions. Okay, that's good. One of the investments that you made in West Africa, specifically in Ghana, was DDP Outdoors investment. I know you've exited. What was the business case for that investment? What really pushed you into that?
Okay, so for those who don't know, DDP Outdoor is the market leader in out-of-home advertising in Ghana. So out-of-home advertising is everything like billboards, the kind of advertising that you would see at a stadium or at the airport. When out-of-home advertising, whilst it's a kind of a traditional media format, it's still quite relevant in Africa because it's the best way to reach the mass market. The average man or woman on the street may not necessarily have access to a phone with digital advertising or even regular access to a television. So in Africa, out-of-home advertising and radio are really the best mass communication media to reach the mass consumer base. So that's one thing about the industry. With regards to the company, DDP was a clear market leader in Ghana. The company was founded in 1973 by its founder, Togbor Mensah. And when I met him, this was in 2013, the business was almost 40 years old. And he had developed quite a strong portfolio of clients, all of the big advertisers that you would imagine in Ghana, whether it be MTN or Guinness or Coca-Cola, any FMCG, a bank, telco company that wanted to reach the average consumer was working with DDP. The business had a proven track record of cash flow generation, and I think in the specific case of DDP, there was also a project which was about institutionalizing the firm. As I mentioned, I met Mr. Mensah when he was in his mid-60s. He had started this company in his early 20s. And one thing that he's told me he had been mulling over time was, he was thinking about basically the succession and legacy of his business. He often talked to me about how there were businesses, very big businesses, that he knew of when he was a young man in his 20s who now they were nowhere to be seen. So he was looking and thinking about ways to plan his eventual succession in the business, and he thought partnering with a firm like Adenia could help structure the business, formalize the business so that it could be sustainable in the long run. And that was really the project that we had together.
Excellent. So I mean, given the fact that, he wanted to ensure he put proper structures and to ensure succession and sustainability of the business.
Yeah.
I'm sure you implemented a few value creation initiatives once you went into DDP.
Yeah.
What were those initiatives, and how did they improve the business's performance and then transformation?
Yeah. So, I mean, a firm like Adenia, we're quite, I would say, a generalist investor. So I think where we have expertise is in just, in finance and admin, in trying to create the proper structures that will help a business be sustainable and be able to be run by teams of managers. We wanted to turn a business from being a one-man show into a company that's run by a management team. And so that's what we really provided. Mr. Mensah was someone who was he's a visionary businessman, extremely commercially savvy, an amazing people leader, great at inspiring people. But he was also someone who finished his formal education at like 13 or 14 years old. So when it comes to things like accounting and finance, the ERP system, that was not his area of strong suit. So that's, sort of what we brought on board. The first thing that we did was, upgrade the ERP system, put in place a management reporting system, whether it be financial or operational, that would give the management team access to basically business information and allow them to be able to take decisions. He wanted to be able to step away from day-to-day management because he had other investments in real estate, etc., and be able to sit on the board, which he did, coach and advise the management team with regards to strategy. But then, once they have all of that access to information, they're able to take better decisions. And also, we as shareholders and as board members have the visibility and the information to be able to monitor what's going on in the company. So that was one. Another key area of value creation was managing the health and safety risks, which there are in out-of-home advertising, especially with these super signs that are very tall. So you have workers who are working at height. And we invested a lot in training for those staff, providing of proper PPE. We invested in training across all of the different functions at the company. In terms of other value creation levers, I think one thing that was really important for DDP over the whole period was we were able to finally get the advertising concession at the international airport. We do advertising on all the regional airports in Ghana, but the international one is obviously a key one, and it has tremendous traffic.
Right.
And so over the course of our whole period, we were able to take that concession and manage that. So there were some business development wins as well, driven by the management team.
Sure. So if I get you, so number one is putting in place a proper financial management system for them to ensure improved and enhanced reporting. And then number two is to help with the health and safety issues, training all of the staff to ensure that they comply with all the health and safety requirements. And then the other is also expanding the business activities, by securing some high value clients.
Yes.
I mean, that's those.
Yes, I think those are the main ones.
Okay, that's good. So, though you exited, what lessons are shaping your approach to future investment? What lessons did you learn from that investment that are shaping your approach
to future investments?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the DDP case is quite a singular one because, I mean, for those who aren't aware, Mr. Mensah actually passed away very suddenly and very unexpectedly during our partnership, which was not anything that anyone had ever envisioned. And so whilst on one hand it was like a tremendous shock and grief for the board, for the management team to manage all of that, on the other hand, I think we all saw very quickly how all of these structures that we had put in place actually allowed the business to continue to perform. We never missed a day commercially. So that was amazing. And I think that was basically what you had hoped to accomplish. He probably didn't think it was going to happen, within that time frame. But that was really the objective. So in a lot of ways, I feel like we accomplished what we had set out to do. So I think, for me, what is the lesson learned is really, yes, this mission that we have about institutionalizing and formalizing businesses in West Africa is really important to create those sustainable legacy businesses, DDP celebrated its 50th anniversary 2023, 2 years after he passed away. And there's no reason why the business can't continue to be celebrate its 100th year anniversary in another 50 years. And I think that's a testament to the fact that, putting all of those things in place can help, businesses be sustainable. So I think for me, that's one lesson learned. Obviously, also during this period, there was tremendous macro volatility for all businesses in Ghana. And DDP was able to manage that well, I think thanks to the fact that it has quite attractive assets. So in terms of being able to, maintain its performance on a revenue, on a profitability basis, despite the currency volatility, was quite a success. Adenia, we're managing funds in hard currency, whether they be euro or in USD, and we were able to return an attractive, a relatively attractive return on investment. Certainly we were able to cover our cost of investment, which I can't say that is the case for all investments in markets where there's extreme, currency volatility. So you need to be quite selective and choose assets that have that pricing power, choose assets that have that differentiation that will allow you to weather those storms. I think that's another lesson learned. And actually maybe a third lesson learned is in terms of just your return profile. When you invest in a business, you can take some of your return over the course of the hold period through dividends, or you can wait to try to get your return at exit. I think now, going through the experience with DDP and seeing other portfolios in volatile markets, definitely the strategy of taking some of your return over the hold period, I think leads to a better, a more stable result. And that was also the case in DDP that led to a good outcome.
Great. You mentioned the macroeconomic challenges, currency volatility and all that. So that brings me to the question about challenges with investment in West Africa per se. I mean, Ghana, Nigeria, we've experienced serious currency depreciation. So what are some of the key challenges with exiting investment? I mean, what challenges do you normally face?
So I mean, if you're managing a traditional private equity model where you have a 5-year investment period and a 5-year exit period with the possibility of maybe adding 1 or 2 additional years to your fund life, you're typically hoping for a 5 to 7 year hold period. I think the reality is when you're dealing in markets where there can be volatility, you need to anticipate a little bit of a longer hold period because it's difficult to time the market. You can start an exit process and then COVID can happen or something else can happen, and that might delay you a year or 2. So I think one thing that we see in West Africa is just a little bit of longer hold periods. Also, when there is volatility, it changes the buyer universe because basically you need buyers or potential investors who are comfortable with the market. When things are stable, it's easy to attract foreign investors, but then, when it becomes a bit rocky, your buyer universe comes to, people who are really domestic in their outlook. So, that's another thing to consider. And then, yes, I think, again, being able to be a majority shareholder, I think gives you optionality with regards to your exit, because at the end of the day, with all of the, and this is sort of our thesis at Adenia, with all of the volatilities and the challenges that one faces being an entrepreneur or doing business in Africa, you can't control all of that, but if you can have at least control over the operation, control over the management, then you have, some locus to manage things. So I think being able to carry a controlling stake and be able to sell a controlling stake adds a lot of value, and it's a core part of our investment strategy.
Sure. Thank you so much. So just to my last question, and then we can bring our discussion to a close. So with all the experiences that you've had in investing across Africa, How do you see the investment landscape, shaping up in the next 2 to 3 years?
The next 2 to 3 years.
Yes. Well, how would you expect the investment landscape, deal-making landscape in West Africa and Africa to shape up in the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, I think certainly we're kind of in a buyer's market in the sense that probably valuation expectations are more reasonable amongst business owners who are thinking about options, whether raising capital or trying to gain some liquidity from their business. So if you have dry powder, I think this is the time to be looking for assets. I think also, we have now the emergence of not just hard currency private equity funds, but we are seeing more and more local currency funds. I think which creates interesting opportunities. They are also looking to generate real returns. So when I say real return, a return above the inflation rate, which can be quite high. So it's not like they have low return expectations. But I think at least when you don't have that currency mismatch between, the currency that the company is making and the currency that the fund is investing in, I think it creates some new opportunities. So yeah, I think that also is creating an interesting market both for new investments and also for exits.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and thoughts in deal making in West Africa, in Africa in general, as you are in charge of Anglophone West Africa. So we've learned quite a lot, from your experiences. The fact that, you need to plan your succession. Your experience at DDP tells that the structures you put in place ensure the business sustainability. And of course, the macro challenges in one way present opportunities because you are now, developing local currency, funds to be able to match the currency. So it's been quite interesting engaging you in this edition. Any final closing remarks from you?
And then finally, I would say, I think, again, for investors who want to have access to the real economy in Africa, private equity is really, the best way to have that exposure. And I'm glad that the pension funds are starting to look more and more into that space. And I think maybe the final point, yes, we're in the financial services industry looking to make returns and generate alpha for investors. But like I mentioned earlier, I think it's also about building sustainable businesses. And working with Mr. Mensah was one of the greatest honors of my life, and being able to play a part in creating that, or being a part of developing that legacy or ensuring his legacy, I think is very impactful. And that is those kind of stories and situations that gets me motivated to go to work every day. So
okay, so thank you so much. Thank you.